So this week we discussed global financial crisis, yes? So during the lecture, I tried to explain all the theoretical background and what are the causes of financial crisis. And I told you, whatever the reason is, okay, that the initial reason, whether it's war, whether it's political instability, or pessimistic view of foreign investors, okay, it all affects negatively on financial system, then financial crisis starts, okay? So that was theoretical background. So today we will talk about those cases, all right? We don't have any exercises to solve today, all right? And we don't have any exercises to solve next week in our last seminar. But from these last two seminars in your final exam, minimum, I believe, 20 marks you can gain, okay? So these cases and all the theoretical background is all important. All right? Good. Let's start. So today's lecture slide and our seminar slides contain a lot of information, okay? And I will explain everything on the board. And the remaining content is just for you, for your convenience, okay? You can read it by yourself. I will talk about everything. Good. First case is Mexican financial crisis, okay? Which happened in 1994 and ended after 1 year, all right? What was the reason and how did it start? So, if you consider year 1994, okay, this year is considered one of the most successful years in the history of Mexico, okay? When this year started, it started with something promising. It was some promising year to make Mexican economy even stronger. But at the end of the year, okay, some bad things happened, which means financial crisis started, okay? It started with something good, but ended with something bad, all right? Okay, so what happened in 1994? In January 1st, 1994, certain economic change happened. So which means that Mexico did something. They signed certain type of agreement. So it could help Mexico to grow its economy. What do you think? What kind of agreement it was?
Trade.
Trading with USA.
So what was it?
Trade with
Free trade area.
Free trade area. In other words, NAFTA was established this day. Okay? In January 1st, 1994, NAFTA agreement was signed between Mexico, US, and Canada. Those three countries, yes. Canada, USA, and Mexico. These three countries, they signed free trade area. What are the rules and regulations of FTA? No tariffs between these countries, okay? So look, when we discussed about economic integration, we said those integrated countries, they are going to be more efficient if economies are similar, more competitive, okay? But here you can see that Canada and the USA are very industrialized, developed countries, while Mexico is relatively weak, developing country, right? Here, among these three. And we made arguments that if those economically integrated nations, okay, the weakest partners, they usually gain a lot. Because for them, there will be all opportunities open. In the case of, for example, EU, I explained why those weaker members they are gaining, because they're getting high-tech technology from them. They're helping, to establish their infrastructure. Those things, that type of thing made the experience. So for Mexico, it was a good chance for them to experience those things plus. For Mexicans now, it was a good opportunity to export their goods to US and Canada, right? Because in Mexico, labor is cheap, so they could produce, goods and services for cheap, and they could export to these countries, which is good opportunity. So what do you think? Was it the only advantage of NAFTA for this country? It was not the only, okay? So when Mexico joined to these two countries, where for them now these two big markets are open without any restrictions, okay? So when they joined, all countries in the world, okay, and economists, they were believing that because this country joined to these countries, and now there is no border restrictions for trade, this country will soon, in a very short time, will become one of the strongest economies in the world. So economists, they were predicting that this country will become very strong, okay? So why they were thinking that this country will become strong, there are some reasons. But let's assume, I will give you one example. Okay? Let's suppose that Russia, okay, they used to export, before 1994, okay, they used to export their vodka to these countries. Vodka. And when Russians, they were exporting their goods to these three countries, because they had whiskey industry or some other, alcoholic beverage production industries, they wanted to protect their own industries, and they were imposing tariffs on Russian vodka. So Russians, because of this restriction, they were not able to get bigger market share of these countries. Okay, good. And in our previous sessions, we learned about foreign direct investment, yeah? So Lord, if Russians, if they want to avoid this tariff, what should they do? So they have to invest, yes, to the US, open the vodka production lines here. Once it's produced, it is US made, there is no tariff, right? And they will be selling to Americans. But there is one big disadvantage in the United States, where labor is very expensive.
And land.
Okay? And capital as well. Whether they produce it here with that high labor cost, whether they export that cheap with tariffs, you can see almost no difference in final price. Okay? Good. For Mexicans too, if they produce it here, okay, but from here, at that time there were restrictions. Here too, there were restrictions. But when Mexico joined to NAFTA, things changed, okay? For example, Russians who were intending to reduce the cost, they could immediately react and invest to Mexico. Produce vodka in Mexico, where labor is very cheap, and export from Mexico to these two countries. As a result, they could gain bigger market share of the US and Canada. So this is just simple example, okay, regarding the very small vodka industry. But when Mexico joined, there were very big, giant multinational companies, like car industries, okay? You may consider the Germans, okay, German car manufacturers, or Korean car manufacturers, Japanese. They were willing to invest to this country, open their production lines of cars, and export to these two countries. Because producing is cheaper, without no tariff, they could export. On the other hand, there were electronic industries. From Japan, maybe from Korea, from other countries. Those investors, they were willing to invest to Mexico, open, produce, and sell to these big markets. Ship industries, so many industries. Okay, just the purpose of this, investor interest was to gain bigger market share here through Mexico. So therefore, economists believe if it happens, if these investors they start investing, Mexico is doing nothing. The only thing they're allowing them to open their businesses. This is it. And now, as a result of this agreement, now you can see Mexico, those investors establishing car industry, electronic industry, shipbuilding, whatever, those industries are in. So now, which means that the economy is now booming. Alright? So economists, they thought that it will happen in Mexico in a very short time, and this country will become very strong. Alright? But unfortunately, it did not happen. Alright? Why it did not happen? There were certain things, okay? Certain incidents happened which did not allow to this thing happen. Alright? Okay, good. So these things I have already taught, I will, alright? So here, first thing. They signed agreement in January 1st, right? After 1 month, in one area of Mexico, armed conflicts happened, okay? In one small area of Mexico, or in other words, the name of that conflict was Chiapas conflict, armed conflict, shootings and killings, okay? Happened. So if that type of shootings happen, those killings happen doesn't matter in what level is, how do investors react to this kind of events?
They will stop investing in that country.
Why? Because it raises risk, right? Risk. For example, what happened in Syria? At the beginning of those problems, right? There were 3 or 4 young people like you who were going outside to the street, and they were, expressing their, negative opinions towards the government. The next day, the number increased to 10, the following 100, the following thousands, then millions. And we know what situation like is in Syria today, okay? Because investors are very risk-averse people. Even though it's very small conflict, right? They think it doesn't mean that it's not going to spread to entire country. All right? So therefore, when it happened, those investors who were willing to invest, they stopped. Now that something is wrong with Mexico, so now it's better to wait. Okay? And the ones who already invested, some of them, they were starting pulling back the investment. Some of them. Alright? But of course, Mexican government, they were doing their best in order to gain, investors' confidence, right? So now this conflict is not big. We will settle down in a very short time. Don't worry. Okay? Good. It happened in February. After following 1 month, another incident happened. Okay? This person whose name is Luis Donaldo Colossus, okay? He was assassinated. In 1994, it was election time, presidential election time, and he was one of the most popular candidates. So Mexican nation, they were supporting him a lot, but he was killed. Let's suppose you were the investors, okay, to Mexico at the time, or you were intending to invest. What do you think? Who would you blame for his assassination?
His rivals. His rivals, other countries.
His rivals. Yes, it might be, okay. So investors, they may think, if he's very popular, that Mexican nation is supporting him, it means that there is someone, maybe a rival, who arranged this assassination, okay? So if the probability is, that political leader or someone who is going to be the next leader of the country, then investors, they think, if that type of person becomes the leader, then this country has no future. Okay? Investors, they think that way. When the second incident happened, investors started pulling back their money with the second case, okay? Just these two things happen. All right. When investors reacted in a very pessimistic way to this kind of events, this pooling of investment from the country caused all those problems, financial crisis. How? For example, when investors invest, what do they bring to this country? US dollar, right? Let's suppose. When they bring that US dollar, what do? Do they spend, do they use for all of those transactions in Mexico using dollar?
Say exchange.
No, right? They will bring it, they will convert it into Mexican peso in the exchange market, yes, or in central bank or the banks, and then they invest pesos. When those conflicts happen, all those investors, they had in their hands only pesos. Okay, pesos. At the time, 1 peso was equal to 30 cents.
So Mexican money?
Yes, peso. So they had pesos in their hands, and they were bringing all of those pesos to central banks, exchange markets, in order to get their dollars back. All right? Central bank and other banks, they were, because it's their responsibility, okay, they were getting all of those pesos and returning dollars. They were doing it. Okay, good. And because there was too many investors and too much money needed, central bank was not able to return all of them, which means that their currency reserve became too small. What do you think if central bank experiences shortage of US dollars or other foreign currency? What do they do?
They had electronic money on the
They
transfer.
freeze the.
Doesn't matter. It should be even. That money. Yeah.
They freeze the money.
Yeah. It's one option. Okay. So if they don't have currency reserve, like that foreign currency reserve, they will use their gold reserves. All right. If more US dollar is needed, then they will sell gold in order to exchange with dollars. Okay. So now they were doing it. Their gold reserves were getting smaller. US dollar, those currency reserves getting smaller. Still, they were not able to control the situation. All right. Not able. So long. And when those things happened in the beginning, all right, because fixed exchange rate regime, okay, government made a commitment, promise to everyone, to the nation, to the investors, that they are not going to devalue their currency, because if this kind of things happen, usually countries, they devalue. In advance, they said, we are not going to devalue. But when they were not able to control the situation, they made a decision to devalue peso. So 1 peso was, equal to 16 cents after a few months. Devaluation. Question: why do countries with fixed exchange rate regime, okay, they try to devalue their currency in the case of crisis? What's the reason? Let's suppose now 1 US dollar is equal to almost 10,000 Uzbek soon, right? And I don't want this thing happen in our country. If let's suppose our country, experiences financial crisis, and let's suppose it is fixed exchange rate, okay? You will definitely find, you will see that 1 US dollar minimum will become 20,000 soon, depreciated. Our currency will become weaker, while US dollar will appreciate stronger. Okay? happen? It's not because of supply and demand.
Because they want to attract investment.
Government does it intentionally, okay, with the purpose of increasing export. When crises happen, aggregate demand will decrease. People are not buying anymore because they are poor in the country. In order to revive the economy should produce something. So they try to devalue. When it happens, for foreigners, buying Uzbek goods will be cheaper, very cheap. So for $1 they can buy not one, but two. So they will be interested and they will buy more. If investors start buying more from our country, we will be selling more. In order to supply those goods, we have to produce. In order to produce, we have to hire more Uzbek people. As a result, the economy will start working again. All right? So Mexican government did it. Okay? Did it in order to help the economy. But when Mexican government devalued its currency, those investors totally lost their confidence on Mexican economy. Why? In early 1994, let's suppose there was one businessman investor who invested $1 million. Okay? He brought that money into Mexico. He converted his money to pesos, right? And now after a few months, he had that peso in his hands. Now he wants to take it back after those incidents. And he comes to the bank, and 1 peso is equal to now 16 cents. Which means that $1 million in a few months became just a little more than $500,000. Okay? That person, by doing nothing, lost half of his investment. Okay? So when it happened, those investors were too angry. And after that point, situation became too bad. Or they were flying in Mexico. If they devalue it to 16, no one can guarantee that they will devalue it further. All right? So it was panic. And they were flooding banks and those exchange markets, okay? And as a result, their banking system became weak. Under the edge of bankruptcy. Pouring oil to the fire. We have such a saying, right? When, Mexican people, they saw that, that banks are going through this kind of problem, they were the second group of people who were flooding those banks because they are saying that there is a high probability that these banks will fail. So now, give our money back. People. Okay? Are those banks, were they able to return those money back? No. Alright? So which means that they did not have. As we talked during the lecture, if they don't. I said central bank is already weak. Not able to support properly. So which means if they don't get support from the government, then what will they do? They will start selling their assets, right? Which means if they start supplying more assets to the market, bank asset prices will go down. At the end of the year, all banks, they will calculate their liabilities and assets. Liabilities are, too much, but assets are too low. Banks are all weak because of this. Anyway, what is the role of financial institutions in the economy? They intermediate between savers and investors, right? Or businesses. Which means that they try to attract those deposits and provide to businesses those financial resources needed. Okay. Did those Mexican, banks, did they have, were they able to provide them with those money that they need, financial resources for businesses? No. If these businesses are not able to get that financial support, okay, loans from the banks, what will they do? One, they will shrink the size of the company, or they will just close it. If they close it, what will it cause? High level of unemployment. When there is unemployment, it means these people are not receiving salary. If they don't have salary, they will not be consuming goods. If they don't consume goods, those producers who are producing those goods are not able to sell, which means they will be shrinking the size of their companies or closing, which will cause more unemployment. And it means recession in the country, okay? Financial crisis. So it happened. In a very short time, all of these bad financial crises happened in Mexico, okay? Situation became too bad. All right. But it lasted for only 1 year. Okay, it stopped in 1995. How were they able to stop?
They just
Huh?
they started decreasing taxes and.
All right, good. So they tried to implement fiscal policy, okay? Increase government spending, reducing the tax. It did not help. They did it, but it did not help. Okay? Who helped them? U.S. United States and IMF, International Monetary Fund, and United States, they helped to stabilize the situation in Mexico. Question: why did U.S. help?
Because if they didn't help, all citizens of Mexico will go to the U.S.
All right, Mexico migration issue, right? It was one reason. Very good. Okay. Let's suppose we have Uzbekistan, and now we have 5 neighboring countries, right? Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Tajikistan. If any of those countries, if they go through certain type of problems, Uzbekistan should be in the front line to provide them help, because they are our neighbor. So U.S. first, because it's their neighbor, they try to help. Second was this reason, okay? Today's situation in Mexico is okay, fine, no problem. But still, there are thousands of Mexicans who are trying to cross this U.S.-Mexico border in order to find employment in this country. When the situation is okay. When the situation is going to be that much bad, you may expect those migrants in big numbers. Okay? So Mexico, so U.S. in advance, if we don't stop this kind of problem now, Mexican illegal migration will significantly increase to our country. It was another reason. Okay? And the main help they were provided, the U.S. and IMF, they tried to stabilize the situation by regaining investors' confidence. Okay? What is the role of IMF in the world? Why was it established in 1945? In 1945, IMF was established, and World Bank, or in other words, GATT was established. Okay? World Bank was established to help developing countries to build the infrastructure, while IMF was established in order to help to those countries who are going through financial crisis. Okay? When countries experience financial crisis, they are not able to find help from any other country. No country will be willing to help, because if they, for let's say one country, Uzbekistan, helps to Mexico, and they, become default, it means that Uzbekistan lost that money. All right? But in this case, there is only one international institution, IMF, is going to help because it's their responsibility. So then, when investors they are pulling back, you ask an IMF, they make that just commitment that if for investors, okay, if you are going to, if something really goes wrong with Mexican economy, don't worry, we will help to get your money back. When it happened, these two big countries, strong country and strong institution made that commitment, those investors, they came down. Oh, okay, now it seems that our money is safe. Then it stopped. Okay? And why IMF and US, they were very willing to. It's not only because of migration. Mexico is a very big country. Population is huge, big market. And their financial network institutions are very closely related, they have very strong relation with their neighboring countries. If these countries, okay, also IMF and US, if they allow to this Mexico to fail, these countries, they will be one by one failing too. All right? If IMF does not provide loans now, in the future when the situation spreads to other countries, IMF should provide to all of them those financial support. Okay? So anyway, in 1995 it stopped, and just a little positive changes started happening in 1996, but that promising future, which was in the early 1994, did not happen because of this. Okay? If these conflicts did not happen, and those investors did not lost their trust at that time, maybe today Mexico could be one of the strongest countries in the world. All right? Good. So this information is all available in the slide. You can read it, okay? I have already discussed. Good. Second one. Asian financial crisis. Second one. Asian financial crisis. Is there a country named Asian? No. So what does it mean? Asian countries. Group of countries. Mexico, in Mexican it happened only in one country. But Asian country financial crisis, it happened in group, in number of countries, okay? So which countries were they? So these orange colored, okay, countries in this map. So those financial crises happened in these countries, okay? Started in Thailand, then it spread to Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, and South Korea. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 countries. All right? It started in Thailand. And how did it start? It was like similar to Great Recession US case, okay? Then Thai government, they were spending a lot for real estate. Building those skyscrapers. The Thailand is a very beautiful place, yeah? They have so nice buildings. They were spending a lot for those buildings, all right? In 1997. And, those real estate prices started going down. Prices. They were starting going down, all right? What's the problem of, the price going down to financial institutions, to banks?
Interest rates will go up.
Who finances those, buildings? Banks, usually, okay? So which means that if the prices go down, if it's, in commercial purpose, they will not be able to return those interests, okay? If they are not able, then financial system will be hurt badly, all right? When it happened, financial institutions, they got weaker. And because this Thailand is very strongly growing economy, where a lot of investment there, investors, they started checking, experts, what's wrong? Is it the main problem why they are experiencing that small type of recession? When they checked, they figured out some different problems, okay? Which was very bad problem. For example, let's suppose the main problem was in the banking system, where government had played very important role in the allocation of financial resources of banks. Which means if banks, they want to issue millions of dollars of loans to one company, they had to get permission from the government. Let's suppose in the case of Korea, for example, Samsung, yes? Samsung. This is the strongest multinational company in Korea, okay? And it provides more than 5% of GDP of Korea. It's so strong. Millions of people are employed in this company, okay? They have been very important, very successful, and growing. So what do you think? If government, let's say, do they need loans from banks? Why no?
Yes.
The bigger the company, they need more. All right? So if they, for example, they were asking for loans from banks, those millions of dollars, because it was very important for Korean nation, for Korean government was encouraging banks to issue those loans. Is it bad? Why bad? It's not bad. It's good, I'm saying. No, government. It's important. Support this company because it gives a lot for us. Creates jobs. In Thailand, there were this kind of companies too. The investors, they saw the government is doing that type of intervention. They consider it as no problem, but they found many other problems. What kind? Besides this, there were many other businesses which were very weak, but they were able to get millions of dollars from Thai banks in order to finance their businesses because the owner of this business had a brother at the top. Corruption. Or in other words, I'm the government leader, and I have one stupid brother who wants to start a business, who has no knowledge about entrepreneurship. Investors started pulling their investment back from Thailand. Exactly same situation as in Mexico started here. Banks, they got weak, not able to return, and those, thousands Thai people, they were flooding banks to return their deposits. And those banks were not able to finance those businesses. So businesses were shutting down, unemployment increased. Those people, they were not consuming. All other businesses started one by one failing. Recession started, okay? Recession started. So here's the question. So this situation happened, very bad situation happened in Thailand. Why did those crises, okay, spread to these countries? Not these. It spread to Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, and Korea. But not to Japan, China, Vietnam, or Myanmar, those neighboring countries. Huh? Same problem? What kind of problem?
Currency.
No. They have baht. Baht is their currency. Okay? Baht is their currency. In South Korea, it's won. In Indonesia, it's rupiah. Different currency.
Maybe because of ASEAN.
No, not ASEAN. Korea is not member of ASEAN. So these countries are member of ASEAN. They're not affected. So it was about, they had one thing in common, okay? These countries, they had exactly the same banking system. Banking system was same. When those problems were found in Thailand, investors started checking all other Asian countries. What about other countries? They came to South Korea, they checked that the same problem that corruption is practiced there. Investors started pulling back. In Indonesia, they found, in Singapore, Malaysia, and Philippines, same problem. They did not find that type of problem in China or in Japan. Therefore, they were not affected. Okay? So when those investors started pulling all of their investments, financial crisis started in all countries. So therefore, one very strong disadvantage of being dependent on investment is this. If investors, they start pulling back their money from any country, including the United States, will experience crisis. Oh, okay? So it happened that the impact, the magnitude of those damages was much greater than Mexico. Because Thailand, growing economy, Singapore, South Korea, Asian tigers, Malaysia, very strongly growing economy, Indonesia, very big country with almost 300 million people, very big country. Okay? They were suffering. Okay. For example, among them all, Indonesia was hit the worst. In Indonesia, interest rates rose about 50%, okay? Which means that they were offering for investors, just invest, we will pay you 50% return. They were, no, too risky. Stock market lost 90% of its value, which is very important for investors, okay? Those $10 million cost companies, they became $1 million. Rupiah fell against dollar by 80%, devaluation of currency. Real GDP fell about 13%. In Indonesia, where population is almost 300 million, the 13% means so too big. Okay? Too much. Good. But all of these problems, it lasted for only 1 year. In 1998, it stopped. How?
United States. China.
China did not help. Again, Captain America and IMF, okay? They stepped in and helped to solve the problem. Okay? For US, these markets are very important, okay? Because they have very strong trade relations for them, with them, okay? And how did they help? Again, they try to regain investors' confidence, okay? Don't worry, we will find ways to return your money back. We will encourage them to pay you back, don't worry. So investors, they came down that time, okay? And on the other hand, IMF, they provided them with loans. What is the, cure or medicine for treating economy when it's in crisis?
Financial aid.
Financial aid, money. Okay? If those countries had money, they would not be experiencing that. For example, when investors, they will flood into central banks. If they were give us our US dollar back, here for you, here, how much do you need? They are paying back without any question. No, I mean rejection. Here. Investor, they say, oh, it seems that government is okay. No problem, just keep that money. We will still want to do business, okay? But they were not able to do it, okay? Good. So they help. What do you think? Will IMF provide loans without any conditions? No, right? IMF will provide those financial support if they make sure that these problems will not happen again. What was the problem in those countries?
Banking system.
Banking system. There was strong requirement, you must reform your banking system, which means that crony capitalism, government intervention should be removed. They did it. Okay, they did it, and situation after that became much better. South Korea, Indonesia, and Singapore, in a very short time, they paid back all of those loans, and again became very strong countries. Okay, good. So those informations are here. You can read. Okay, so I already explained. Okay, now watch a short video. It's about Argentinian financial crisis, which is still happening now.
Argentina is in an economic crisis again. The country has spent 1/3 of the past 70 years in recession, defaulted 8 times, 3 of which occurred in this century. Last year, the International Monetary Fund loaned $57.1 billion to Argentina. It was the largest loan it had ever given to a country. But only 15 months after the bailout, the country is back in a crisis. The primary elections in Argentina, which took place on August 11, has been a defining moment for the country's economy. Argentina's stock market, Merval, lost 48% the next day. And since the start of the year, the Argentinian peso tumbled around 33% against the US dollar. Following a $3 billion wipeout of official reserves in just 2 business days, the government announced capital controls, which put restrictions on ordinary people as well as companies. Individuals are now limited to buying no more than $10,000 a month, and companies need to get permission from the Central Bank of Argentina to buy foreign currency or precious metals and to transfer that money abroad. But what happened in the primaries to trigger all of this? Voters handed a big win to Alberto Fernandez, a rival of incumbent President Mauricio Macri. Fernandez beat Macri by a margin of 15 percentage points. When Macri came into power in 2015, he promised to revive the economy. And the IMF helped him to do that with the record bailout. But the bailout came with austerity measures that ordinary people had to bear the brunt of. Fernandez has campaigned on promises to raise salaries and reverse policies adopted by Macri.
Argentines are taking billions out of the bank accounts, which they do not know how the next government is going to finance their program, which they say they're going to put money in people's pockets. But from how? Where? How are you going to do that? No one knows.
According to government figures, 25% of the population was poor in 2017, but now estimates put the number at 35%. So there was a 10% increase in poverty in a very short period of time. There have been massive protests demanding subsidies, food, and other things people need. But even if Fernandez wins the presidential election on October 27, no one really knows how he's going to finance those promises.
The country basically now in a situation where it cannot finance itself. It constantly runs into current account deficits. The budget deficit of the government is almost always in well, which sucks up huge amounts of capital that otherwise would have been invested in the private sector for productive ends.
Argentina's credit rating was downgraded by all 3 of its main agencies, and a survey suggests that there is a 55% probability of default within 1 year. Will Argentina ever be able to fix its economic woes?
All right. So let me ask you some questions about the video. Okay, those prices are happening in that country. All right, good. How robust was the economy of Argentina in the last 70 years? Okay, not 70 years, in the last 70 years. Was it sound, good, running economy? So it says that in the history they defaulted
7 times.
8 times.
8 times.
Out of those 3 happened in the last
Century.
which means the economy is too weak. Okay, good. How much loan have IMF issued to Argentina in 2018? 57.1 billion. It's huge. Okay? Sure. Okay. Question. Was it a wise decision to wise a risky economy? Why no? It's an IMF, your responsibility.
Yeah,
So it was wise decision, but it was not wise decision too, because after 15 months, same problem happened again in a very short time. Okay? How did the crisis affect the Argentinian stock market and foreign exchange market?
Like they have lost 33% of their currency to US dollar, and then stocks also like
stock prices reduced by 48%, which is something investors hate. All right, because they invested, they have a company which cost $1 million. Now it lost half of its price, which means that if it continues, they will lose entire money. Okay, very bad. Regarding exchange, the currency devaluated. I already explained how investors don't like devaluation of currency. Okay? Does Argentinian economy have proper solution to growing budget deficit?
No.
No.
It's like
No.
they are in trap. It's like someone is helping them, but after money is like they are spending it, and there's no money in their budget
To recover, right? So that expert, right, the researcher, he is explaining that now government is, spending, getting all of those loans, but government has no plan to recover those budget deficits. Okay, good. So I will check your attendance now, and I will give you a break. Okay, just a second. All right, let's continue. So now, case 3, Great Depression. Okay? Great Depression, which happened in 1930s, or in other words, it is one of the biggest financial crises that world experienced. Okay? Other name is it is the mother of all crises. All right? Financial crisis. So Great Depression. The biggest crisis in the history happened in the United States, okay? And the second biggest also happened in the United States. So the first one is Great Depression, the second is Great Recession, which we talked during the lecture, okay? Good. Great Recession, or Great Depression. It started in 1929, October 29. It was Tuesday. All right? It was Tuesday. So this Tuesday is called Black Tuesday. Okay? So this day is called Black Tuesday. It is the beginning of Great Depression. What happened that day? So the stock market price for US stocks, because US stock sharply declined. Okay, whatever the reason was, so the stock prices went down. So Lord, that day, let's suppose that there was 20% decline in stock price. Okay? The following day, 10 more %, for example. How will investor react to this, falling stock prices? Very negatively, right? Because stock prices are going down, the value of those banks or those companies is losing. So if it's going to continue, they will entirely lose the investment, right? So the prices of those stocks were declining. So when it happened, so you already know the following things that may happen. Investors, they will start pulling their investment from the United States, and that pooling of those investments will cause negative effect on banks. Yes? When banks become weak, people also will be starting pulling their money back because they see it's weak already. And as a result, these banks are not able to finance those businesses. If businesses are not financed, then high unemployment and recession in the country. Okay? Good. It happened in 1929. At that time, banking system was very different compared to today. Okay? So what? When during the Great Recession in 2008 and 9, when those crises happened, who helped to American economy to revive again? No, America itself. Okay? Because it was a strong nation, they had enough money. What did they do? In order to stabilize those banking financial institutions, Federal Reserve did their best. They used monetary policy. Increased money supply, reduced interest rates. On the other hand, government, they implemented fiscal policy. They increased government purchases, okay, and decreased taxes. That way they tried to help the economy, okay, and they were able to help. But in 29, situation was very different. Federal Reserve did nothing almost. Because by certain regulations, it was not that they were not able to help those banks. Banks, they need money in this time, right? When Federal Reserve, they had that money, but they did not help. There were some restrictions, okay? And on the other hand, because Federal Reserve did not help, those giant banks like Bank of New York failed, bankrupt. During the Great Recession, was there any big financial institutions which got bankrupt? Great Recession. There wasn't any. Because Federal Reserve and government, they did not allow it to happen. But in Great Depression, one of the biggest banks failed. When it failed, there were thousands of people, because it's bankrupt, they lost entire money that they had. So many people, they committed suicide because of loss. Okay? It happened. And their unemployment rate increased, and it reached 25%, which is the highest level of unemployment rate in the history of the United States. Okay? It is the highest level. So, on the other hand, if you make a comparison though during 2008 and 2009, Great Recession, yeah? And between 29 and 1932, within these years, the world GDP, that worldwide GDP reduced by 1% during Great Recession. I remember that time I was a student, master student abroad. I know what was the situation like that time. Okay, it was too bad. But during this time, the world GDP reduced by 15%. Okay? Which means the situation was 15 times worse that time. And worldwide, world trade volume reduced by 50% during this time, which means that those trillions of dollars of transactions reduced by 50%. In the United States, one of the hardly affected industries was agricultural sector. Okay, 60% reduction in agriculture. And plus, we know in Russian language there is saying like if one bag comes, many other bags will follow. when agricultural sector, they were having these problems, consecutive 3 years. Weather was very bad. No rain, no water. Okay, drought. So they were not even able to grow those vegetables and fruits. And those farmers, they were affected really badly. Okay? So overall, the situation in the United States was very, very bad. Okay? Very, very bad. Federal Reserve, they did not help. Okay? They thought today, the monetary economists, they usually blame Federal Reserve. If Federal Reserve, when banks like Bank of New York, they were insolvent, if they could help them financially, that problem could not get that big.
And why didn't they help them?
There were restrictions. Okay? Restrictions. And fiscal policy, government did not implement. Why? Because what's the fiscal policy? Government should increase spending, yes?
And reduce taxes.
And they have to reduce tax. But during that time in American Constitution, it was written that US government should follow strict balanced budget system. Balanced budget. If government increases spending, it will be budget deficit. If government reduces taxes, again it will be budget deficit. So therefore they were not implementing these tools. Okay? Good. So the situation was so bad. And how did they solve the problem then? Of course, it was the longest crisis in the history, about 10 years long. Okay? But finally they stopped, okay? For example, when these things were happening, one of the biggest problems was in the United States regarding prices, okay? Prices were declining day by day. Price was going down and down and down and down. It was one of the problems. That time it was, Roosevelt who was the president of the United States, okay? Who was elected 4 times. Very loud president of the United States, of Americans. So now, when these prices were going down, Roosevelt and his administration, they were thinking that in order to recover the economy again, we have to find a way to stop that price falling. Or we have to increase the prices. And they tried to do it. If the prices are going down, how can you stop it? How can government, increase the prices?
They have to collect all the money from the...
If they don't have money.
Fix it. Fix them. Regulate.
Deficit. Reduce supply. Yes? Reduce supply. For example, they try to reduce supply of certain goods and services. Alright? Using their tools, for example, they could reduce the supply of meat. If they reduce the supply of meat to the economy, the meat price will increase. For example, today if you go to Chorsu market, to that meat section, 1 kilogram of meat is 60,000 soon. Okay? And if you go to vegetable section, 1 kilogram of potato is 3,000 soon. 1 kilogram of carrots, 1,500 soon. 1 kilogram of onion is 1,000 soon, for example. Let's suppose the next day, if you go to the same market, the price increased by 20,000 soon. Now it is 80,000 soon. If you go to vegetable section, the price is same. But if you go to the same market after a few days, after 1 week, you will definitely find these prices are high. Because it is very main consumption good. When those prices change, it will pull other prices also up, okay? So they increased the meat price in order to increase it, but it did not help the economy at all. it was wrong decision. Okay? Roosevelt was not an economist. Okay. And on the other hand, there were some other economists who, expressed their solutions. For example, John Maynard Keynes, British economist, okay, very strong one. He sent a letter to Roosevelt. He explained, now the situation in the United States is too bad because aggregate demand in the country is too low. So now his suggestion was government should use all still in the United States people who had savings, okay? So first, government should encourage those people who have savings to spend. If they spend, economy will start working again. Second, Keynes suggested government should experience budget deficit, not balance, deficit. So they should increase government spending and they have to reduce tax. It was his idea. Because in the United States, by law, it should be balanced budget. Roosevelt and his administration ignored his advice. It's law. Okay? Then the situation was, getting bad and bad. Okay, nothing was changing. And how was the United States able to stop these problems? Luckily, what happened? In 1945, World War II started. Okay? Great Depression lasted until that time. Oh. Where at that year, Japanese attacked Hawaiian island of the United States, which means that Japanese quantum army of the Japan, it was too strong at that time. They declared war to the US, okay? And what did US do then when they declared war? They started spending, all right? They started spending billions of dollars for building roads for military purpose, building military ships, building submarines, building tanks, weapons, agriculture, in order to supply those goods for soldiers, those textile industries, in order to supply those clothes for soldiers. Because they started immediately spending, US economy started immediately recover. Okay? During the time of war, United States economy, booming. Okay? Booming. After World War II, the United States became super powerful nation. Militarily, economically, from all sides. Okay? That way, Great Depression was over. All right.
Did they experience the budget deficit?
Oh, yes, they did. Look, they did it, though government, they increased spending in 1945, right? Which Keynes asked to do the same thing many years ago. Keynes was asking government to do it, increase spending. The situation will improve. But government did not do it. Once they did it because of war and economy started booming, Keynes became very famous economist. Because what he suggested really worked. After that point, whatever the country is, when they experience crisis, they use Keynes' advice. Government spending, taxes down. Okay? Keynes became very famous. Or in other words, we call him the father of macroeconomics. Okay? Good. So now if you look at some statistics, so I can just show you, you can see from here that real GDP of the United States during this, from 30 to 29 to up to this point, it was very low. And it's wartime, you can see how it increased. Okay? unemployment rate, again, it reached at the peak during those crises, okay? And slowly reduced during the whole down. See? Unemployment, how was it was? Down. They were producing, and those soldiers are also employed people, okay? All right? Regarding Great Recession, I will not repeat it again because it was discussed during the lecture. I explained. And there are lots of arguments here which you have to just once again review, okay? So these things which we already discussed. And among them all, this anatomy of crisis is very important. I explained, right? So it starts with those asset price boom and burst, then insolvencies in those financial institutions, then those falling confidence of people, right? Then there will be credit crunch, they are not able to finance their businesses, then recession will start, high unemployment. If it's not stopped, then vicious cycle again will start. Okay. So these pages, you can read these pages of this book, okay? Where Mexican crisis, Asian crisis, the Great Recession, Great Depression cases are presented in these pages, okay? Try to find 8th edition. If it's not available, 9th edition. But if you pick up, 7th or 6th edition, it's not available. All right?